Welcome to the Hall of Teams, the podcast where sports legends live again. I'm your host, Kirk Jensen, and today we travel to a continent carved by sun and distance. Australia, a land wide and wild, a land where sport pulses through it like a living vein. I've been to Australia, including the 2009 World Master Games. Each visit showed me how deeply sport and athletics ran through the country for all ages. I grew up with fast-paced games that ended in 2 or 3 hours at the most. So cricket and matches that can unfold over days felt difficult to understand. Yet the more I listened to Australians speak about the game, the more I began to respect its heartbeat. The passion that cricket fans have for their sport does not take a backseat to anyone. I found that cricket is one of the most widely played and followed sports on the planet. More than 2 billion people follow the sport, and it is now played in more than 100 countries. The 2023 World Cup drew more than 1.2 million fans into stadiums. More than 518 million viewers watched on television. A global record was set when 59 million people streamed the India versus Australia final at the same time. These numbers reveal the immense global pull of the sport. And all of this came from a championship with only 10 teams. If cricket one day fields 32 competitive nations, similar to the FIFA World Cup, the scale of global interest could be astronomical. This is where their story begins. The national cricket team of Australia, the Baggy Greens. Chapter 1, Roots of a Tradition. Cricket came to Australia with soldiers and settlers in the early 1800s, on British ships bound for the colonies. Officers of the New South Wales Corps brought bats and balls with them as a link to home. Many of them had played in village matches back in England and saw cricket as a way to bring discipline, recreation, and familiarity to an unfamiliar land. As early settlements grew around Sydney Cove, the British military garrisons became the first organized cricketers. They set up makeshift grounds on open clearings near barracks and used the game to maintain morale. Convicts and free settlers watched and eventually joined. The first recorded match took place in 1803 in Sydney. Soldiers marked creases with ashes. Wickets were carved from timber. The ground was uneven and dusty, yet something in the game resonated with the new colony. Something about its rhythm and its patience matched the land itself. By the 1820s, civilian clubs began forming in New South Wales and Tasmania as migrants from Britain and Ireland brought their own cricketing traditions. Every new settlement that built a pub and a church also tended to build a cricket pitch. In 1832, the Hobart Town Cricket Club was formed in Tasmania, the first officially organized cricket club in Australia. By the late 1800s, Australia was no longer merely playing cricket. It was competing with the world. And soon the first great rivalry emerged: Australia versus England, a contest that would forge the national sporting psyche and ignite a story that continues today. Crest and Colors. For this episode, we're introducing a new section called Crest and Colors. This will be a staple for every Hall of Teams episode moving forward. In Crest and Colors, we explore where a team's crest comes from, what its symbols mean, and how their colors came to carry meaning. Before Australia's cricket identity became unmistakable, the early teams wore navy blue uniforms influenced by the England colors. In time, the national team embraced colors that spoke directly to Australia: green and gold. Green drawn from eucalyptus forests and the deep bush. Gold from sunlit fields and the optimism of a young nation. Together, these colors became the visual heartbeat of Australian sport, and they set the stage for the most iconic symbol of all, the Baggy Green. The Baggy Green is a cap worn by each player and is a cherished part of the uniform. Its cloth is made from 100% Australian wool, crafted in a traditional broadcloth style that has barely changed in more than a century. 8-stitch panels form the crown. A brim built for harsh summer light shades the eyes. Nothing about it is decorative. Everything is functional. Everything is Australian. On the front sits the crest drawn from the national coat of arms. Wheat and sheep for agriculture, a pickaxe and shovel for the mining that shaped early industry, a ship for trade and migration, the Southern Cross, a constellation Australians have looked upon for generations. Flanking the shield stand the kangaroo and the emu. They are not chosen because of mythology, but because neither animal can move backward. They symbolize a nation that moves forward with purpose and refuses to retreat. Each Baggy Green also carries an official sequential cap number, awarded the moment a player makes their first Test debut for Australia. Since Charles Bannerman received cap number 1 in March 1877, over 450 have earned the honor of wearing the cap. Some years a handful of names are added. Some years, none at all. The pace is deliberate, and it reminds everyone that the Baggy Green is earned and never given. Chapter 2: Bradman and the Rise of a Cricket Nation. Every nation has a moment when a sport becomes more than recreation and transforms into identity. For Australia, that moment arrived in the 1930s when a quiet young man from Bowral stepped into the spotlight. Donald Bradman, unassuming, soft-spoken, focused. He carried little of the bravado often associated with sporting greatness. Yet with the bat in his hand, he became something extraordinary. Bradman's technique was sharp, his precision unmatched. His appetite for runs seemed endless. His career average of 99.94 remains one of the most famous numbers in cricket and astonishing achievements in world sport. Even now, no one has approached it. Bradman once said, "I was never worth the many words printed about me." It was a reflection of the humility that shaped his life and made his achievements feel even larger to those who watched him. At a time when the Great Depression weighed heavily on families across the country, Bradman offered something rare: hope. Australians gathered around radios to hear the descriptions of his batting. People carried their worries into the stadium and left with something lighter. His leadership and presence laid the foundation for one of the most iconic teams in Australian history. The 1948 side that toured England played 34 matches and finished with 25 wins, 9 draws, and no defeats. Newspapers and commentators began calling them Invincible long before the tour ended. And as the unbeaten streak continued, the nickname the Invincibles settled into the public imagination. One of the most treasured objects in sport is the Baggy Green worn by Bradman. His was cap 124, and he kept it throughout his entire career. He never replaced it. He believed its familiarity kept him anchored. Bradman once said, "You play for your country. You wear the cap with pride and a sense of responsibility." As the years passed, the cap aged with him. Sun faded, sweat stained, frayed at the edges, yet always present. It was more than cloth, and in time, the faded cap became a symbol of Australia itself. Chapter 3: Post-war rebuilding and a new identity. After the Second World War, Australia faced a new era. Towns were rebuilding, families were healing, and Australian cricket needed leadership that reflected resilience and unity. This generation included players who shaped the character of the team rather than just the scoreboard. Men like Lindsay Hassett and Keith Miller, players who brought poise and confidence, a sense of daring that mirrored a country coming into its own. Keith Miller once said, something that defined his era: "Pressure is a Messerschmitt diving at you. Cricket is not." He played freely, boldly, fearlessly, and through him, Australia began embracing a style of cricket that reflected the national spirit: tough, loyal, adventurous. This was a team that refused to retreat, a team that played with straight backs and strong wills, a team that began building a modern identity that would inspire generations. Trivia from the Hall: how cricket is played. Cricket is unlike almost any other sport in the world. It is not played in minutes. It's not measured by quarters or halves. It unfolds over days. A test match, the purest format of the game, lasts up to 5 days and still can end without a winner. A test match is played in 2 innings per side. One team bats while the other team bowls and fields. Bowling in cricket is similar to pitching in baseball. The batting team tries to score as many runs as possible. The bowling team tries to dismiss 10 players, which is the cricket equivalent of getting a batter out in baseball. Then the teams switch roles. Over the course of days, momentum shifts and conditions change. A morning may belong to the bowlers, an afternoon may belong to the batters. The drama builds slowly and relentlessly. The endurance required is extraordinary. A batter may stand at the crease for hours. A bowler may run in more than 100 times in a single day. Fielders must remain sharp under a burning sun. Patience becomes a weapon. This is why legends are forged in tests. Greatness is not defined by a single moment, but by resilience across time. A team that endures across all 5 days earns a victory built on character as much as skill. For the Baggy Greens, this is the format that shaped their identity. Test cricket did not just demand excellence, it demanded endurance. And Australia built a culture that embraced both. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, know you can also watch this full episode on YouTube, complete with rare photos, historic match footage, and stunning visuals that bring the story to life. Just search Hall of Teams on YouTube and see the legends, colors, and moments as they happen. Chapter 4: Benaud and the Revolution of Confidence. Richie Benaud arrived in 1952, stepping into Australian cricket at a moment when the team needed a leader who understood people as much as tactics. He wore Baggy Green cap number 190, and from the beginning, he showed a calm and thoughtful presence. He believed that cricket should be played with courage and enjoyment. Benaud once told his players, "Enjoy the game and chase your dreams, because dreams do come true." He led by example. He changed field placements, he took risks, trusted his instincts, and more importantly, he trusted his teammates.
Bowler.
Bowled May behind his leg.
Richie Benaud polishes his bat ready for his last innings.
Under Benaud, Australia learned how to win through confidence rather than caution. His captaincy record became one of the most extraordinary in cricket history. He led Australia in 8 test series, won 5, and drew the rest. And he never lost a series as a captain. He also delivered 2 Ashes victories, and no Australian captain before him had combined tactical daring with consistent success in quite the same way. Australia believed again because he showed them how belief could shape results. Benaud's leadership did not end when he retired. His voice as a commentator shaped how generations understood the game. He became the conscience of cricket. His legacy remains stitched deeply into the sport's fabric. Chapter 5: Modern Dominance. From the late 1980s to the early 2000s, a new era emerged, one of excellence that redefined how the world understood Australian cricket. This was not simply a strong team. It was a dynasty, a machine built on discipline, confidence, and the belief that wearing the baggy green meant performing at the highest standard on earth. Every era has its architects. Alan Border, Baggy Green cap number 299, rebuilt the foundation through grit and quiet resolve, a period that became known as the Border Revival, because he steadied a program that had lost its edge and restored belief at a time when Australian cricket needed direction. Ricky Ponting, Baggy Green cap number 366, carried that standard forward with fierce competitive fire and the conviction that winning was a responsibility. And Warne, Baggy Green cap number 350, gave it brilliance, a showman's flair that turned cricket into theater and mastery into art. Together, they embodied the spirit of a nation that refused to yield. Border built the backbone. Ponting enforced the standard. Warne gave it magic. Ponting once said, "The Baggy Green demands a standard. Every time you walk out there, you protect the past and set the tone for the future." This era lived that truth. Australia's dominance was not just felt, it was measured. They won 3 consecutive ICC Cricket World Cups in 1999, 2003, and 2007. The only nation in history to accomplish such a feat. In total, Australia has captured 6 ODI World Cup titles through 1987 to 2023, more than any other country. They secured 2 ICC Champions trophies as well, proving their strength across different formats of cricket and generations. In Test cricket, they became the benchmark of excellence. During this modern era, Australia not only dominated at home, but conquered tours in England, South Africa, the Caribbean, and India. Their success away from home gave the dynasty its global weight and left an imprint that defined an entire nation. By the early 2000s, Australia held the #1 Test ranking for years on end. They produced a world record 16 consecutive Test victories. Australia did more than defeat opponents. They set the global standard for excellence and forced every cricketing nation to rethink what greatness looked like. For more than a decade, the Baggy Greens did not simply win. They ruled. Trivia from the Hall. The Ashes. The rivalry that endures. The Ashes began as a joke that became legend. In 1882, after Australia defeated England on English soil for the first time. The next day, a London newspaper printed a mock cricket obituary declaring that the rule of the English team had died and that the body will be cremated and the ashes taken to Australia. When England returned to Australia later that year, their captain vowed to regain those ashes. Before the match, a small terracotta urn was presented to him as a symbol of the rivalry. More than a century later, that tiny urn still represents one of the most intense sporting contests in the world. Since that first spark, Australia and England have fought through 73 Ashes series. Australia has claimed 34 of them, England 32, with 7 series drawn. Across nearly 150 years, the margin remains astonishingly close, a testament to how evenly matched and emotionally charged the rivalry has been. Today, the Ashes remains the heartbeat of Test cricket. Stadiums sell out months ahead, television audiences surge, and players from both nations speak of the Ashes as the contest that defines careers. The urn may be small, but its meaning is enormous. To win the Ashes is to claim history, pride, and one of the most enduring symbols in world sport. Chapter 6: When Cricket Became Combat. Great teams face moments when their values are tested and their identity challenged. In 1932, one of the earliest and most explosive trials arrived. A moment so fierce, it changed cricket forever. England arrived with a plan that pushed the sport to its limits. Their bowlers unleashed fast, short deliveries aimed at the body. The short pitch balls forced batters to fend the ball away from their chest or head, and the batter's defensive move sent the ball straight towards a waiting wall of fielders. It turned physical risk into tactic. It was legal, but the intent was something else entirely. Batters were bruised, crowds were stunned. The atmosphere inside the grounds felt less like a test match and more like a battle. The tension reached its breaking point in Adelaide. Australian Bert Oldfield was batting without a helmet, as every player did in that era, and he attempted to pull a rising delivery from Harold Larwood, but the ball was too fast. It violently hit his head and fractured his skull. Oldfield collapsed to the ground. The crowd erupted in anger. In the center of the storm, Australian captain Bill Woodfull delivered the sentence that still echoes through time. There are two teams out there. One is trying to play cricket. That single line captured the nation's outrage. Bodyline, as it was called, was not simply a strategy. It became a conflict of values, a question of fairness, of sportsmanship, and of national pride. Newspapers demanded action. Politicians entered the fray. Letters were exchanged between the Australian Prime Minister, Joseph Lyons, and Britain's government, warning that relations between the two nations were at risk. The tension grew so heated that the matter reached the floor of the Australian Parliament. For a brief time, cricket nearly caused a diplomatic rupture within the empire itself. But through it all, Australia stood united behind its team. Players and fans refused to be intimidated. The young nation, still finding its voice, discovered its spirit in defiance. Bodyline did not fracture Australia. It fortified it. Chapter 7: Grounds of Glory. Australia's cricketing story cannot be separated from the places that shaped it. The grounds are more than venues. They are cathedrals of summer. The Melbourne Cricket Ground and the Sydney Cricket Ground are not simply stadiums. They are national memory. Australians speak of them the way others speak of old books or sacred texts. Across these grounds, Australia forged a culture where cricket became more than a sport. It became summer. Children mimicked the actions of their heroes in the backyard. And from these children emerged the next chapter. Australia's youth development pathway is one of the strongest in world sport. From community clubs to state academies to elite junior programs, the system is built not only to identify talent, but to nurture character. Young players learn early that the Baggy Green is not a destination. It is a responsibility. Coaches across the country speak the same language. Respect the game, respect the team, respect the cap. The MCG and SCG will always roar. And across suburbs, small towns, and distant communities, young cricketers dream not of only wearing the cap, but of upholding everything it presents. The Baggy Green endures because the story does not rest. It keeps growing in the hands of those who dream to wear the cap. We induct the Australian Baggy Greens because no team has captured the heart of a nation so completely. From the dusty fields of the late 1800s to the bright lights of the modern stadiums, this team carries a story that grew with the country itself. Like the country, the Baggy Green overcame trials. They produced legends. They lifted spirits in hard years and united communities in great ones. They created eras of dominance unmatched in world cricket. The Baggy Greens belong in the Hall of Teams because they are more than players in a uniform. They are the story of Australia, written across summers, etched in grounds, carried in the hearts of millions. And today, they take their rightful place among the greatest teams in history, the Australian Baggy Greens. In the Hall of Teams, legends don't just live in the past. They rise again through you. This year, you decide who earns the title Team of the Year. It's more than a title. It's a legacy without borders across all sports, across time, and across the world. Want your team to win? Watch the episode, tap like, comment with Team of the Year and your team's name. And don't forget to subscribe, because every voice and every vote counts. The team with the most likes, comments, and new subscribers will be crowned Team of the Year. Their logo will be immortalized on the Wall of Honor on the Hall of Teams website. And remember, you can watch the full episode on the Hall of Teams YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the story of the Australian Baggy Greens. Next time on the Hall of Teams, we travel north to a place where winter does not feel like a season. It feels like an identity. A place where frozen ponds become classrooms, where the echo of stick on ice and a puck shot against the boards is the sound of home. To a country where winter shapes identity and hockey lives in the heart. the Canadian Olympic hockey team, a team that carries a nation every time it steps onto Olympic ice. Join me for their story. Until then, remember, behind every logo is a legacy, and behind every team, a tale worth telling. I'm Kirk Jensen, and this is the Hall of Teams.